believe there are some business owners and managers or even employees. Welcome to Labor Matters right here on KBN TV. I am your host as usual, Patricia, and today we have an important and yet interesting topic where we just want you to get back to us and tell us what you think about our topic of discussion for today. So today we are looking at staff code of conduct. That is what we are looking at today. So if you have any questions, comments or contributions, please feel free to send us a text message using the number which will be right on your TV screen soon. So in the studio, I'm not alone as usual. I am with Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda, who is management and leadership advisor, not forgetting that he is an international speaker. I must make mention for the sake of the people that are joining us for the very first time on Labor Matters. So please feel free to follow him on all social media platforms. We're talking about LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. Make sure you follow him on all social media platforms. Last week, we had an amazing conversation, or did I make mention to say the other week? We had an interesting topic, and thank you very much to each and every person who sent in their contributions. And we're looking at workplace romance. That is what we were looking at last week, and we received quite a number of interesting questions, people asking what is making our workplace romance become more prevalent. So we want to find out from our very own Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda, who will help us discuss more about some of the questions you sent. Mr. Kabanda, welcome to Labor Matters.
Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing very fine and glad to be here.
Amazing. I just mentioned to say last week we had quite a number of text messages from our viewers. The conversation was quite informative and interesting. So before we talk about a topic of discussion for today, maybe if you can just help us respond to one of the questions. What is making workplace romance become more prevalent? What is making it to be where it is?
Yeah, so there are a lot of factors that actually we can look at that could lead or could influence this phenomenon around workplace romance. Basically, you're looking at, first of all, the changing nature of jobs, where you will find that as people are working, they are spending more and more time, like we said in the last episode, they spend more time together. And those are things that could actually lead to the people starting to create this proximity amongst themselves and eventually come together. The other aspect, if you look at again the nature of work, you're finding that more and more people may have to go somewhere. They are not, maybe the couple is not having employment in the same city, for instance. So you have employees who go to work in other places. So you find that the wife or the husband is this side and the other one is going to work in another place. And that usually sometimes it's actually for a long time. So some people, they then start to, become vulnerable to those extents. You have workplaces where, for instance, someone has to go in. It's, for instance, in the mines, maybe you go in, you have a camp where the staff will stay, or in construction, or just even other jobs. You find that the people go and stay there for some time before they can actually be released to go and visit families and so on. So then some natures of the nature of certain jobs could actually also influence some of these things that the viewers are asking about. The other aspect is really to do with just some level of shift in the values. If you look at, for instance, from the Christian point of view, from Christian values, and even African traditional values, there is an emphasis of two people being together with each other and so on, without the involvement of other people. Now, with time, with social media, with everything that is happening around, you find certain things now become even like that is the normal. So in terms of values, people start to shift their values from sticking to one partner to now thinking that it is okay to be with other people in such kind of thing. So this aspect, there are a lot of factors that are really could be said to be influencing this workplace romance. And the other thing probably to look at is lack of clarity in terms of the way companies define the expected standards and behaviors in the employees, because there have to be some level of professional boundaries, and those are actually reinforced when people are basically trained and are taught the acceptable things in the company and things that the company will not accept. So there are a lot of factors.
Now, Mr. Wanda, when we look at situations of high unemployment rates and the fear of maybe losing jobs, can an employee probably maybe refuse when they are not happy with sexual advances from either a work colleague or their bosses? Because we talked about it in the previous episode to say we have situations where colleagues trying to have relationships with the fellow colleagues. So in such kind of a situations, how should they probably maybe have such kind of a situation in a workplace?
Yeah, so when it comes to the fear of losing jobs, yes, that sometimes can lead to an employee to feel that if they ever said no to such advances, probably it could lead into them, starting to be treated in a kind of hostile manner, or they find that maybe someone just has to now, set them up or try to now find a lot of faults in them. You're not doing this job, you're not performing properly, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, just because there's something that in the background they did refuse. But it's important to understand as an employee that you have a right. You entered into contract with the employer, and you created an employment relationship, and that employment relationship is governed by certain rules, and there are laws that actually protect you as an employee to make sure that you can work as an employee in a professional manner. Therefore, if you feel you are being threatened, definitely you have the right to report those. In many companies, there are channels, there are procedures that should be followed, that will be taught. But if things are not clear, again, there are avenues, including the labor office, including the courts, where an employee can actually go, where they're actually feeling that they are being threatened, or worse enough, their job is on the line.
Okay, now last time you talked about the need for companies to have proper code of conduct in workplaces to manage employees' behaviors. Now, what is this code of conduct, for the sake of maybe people that are hearing this word for the very first time? What did you mean when you talked about organization having a code of conduct?
Yeah, so when it comes to code of conduct, it's basically let me simplify it as a document that you can find or a manual that you can find in workplaces, which basically defines the behaviors that are expected of the employees. So it will list everything that is expected, what the standards that are expected from employees. What the code would do, again, there are various forms and variations to codes of conduct, but the key issue is to basically tell you what the institution is all about, why this institution exists and what it's trying to achieve. And then it will stipulate now how employees are expected to behave. So it will have the do's and don'ts. It's like your Bible or your Quran, or whatever you can call it, in a workplace. It's telling you you can do this and you cannot do this. So it outlines how you should, an employee, for instance, should relate with other employees, what is expected of them. It will show you how employees are expected to behave with even the customers. Issues of service excellence. There's an expectation that you serve the customers very well, and so it will stipulate what is your behaviors that the company expects from you as you interact with the customers. Can you take tips? Can you take bribes from customers? All those things will be stipulated, and you'll be told this is a no-go area. The code will also even stipulate how you can relate even to board members, for instance, or any other person of influence outside of your institution. Because what is required is that the employee's performance and behavior should be governed by the rules of the institution, and not someone, because they are failing to perform or their behavior is not acceptable, now they have to run to some board members to get some favors. now that starts to actually make the organization to be not governed properly. So it will stipulate your behaviors that you should portray, including things like how does your personal conduct affect you as an employee, and how does that personal conduct will affect, how it will affect the company also. So you find that the code of conduct, the staff code of conduct, it will tell you how you should behave. In some codes, they will tell you the institution will not stop you from living your life. But then they will stipulate that whatever you do in your personal life should not bring embarrassment to you or bring embarrassment to the institution. So these things are extremely important in terms of your personal behavior, issues maybe to do with your character, issues to do with even your personal finances, which could probably bring embarrassment to the institution if you don't manage yourself very well. So codes of conduct, we normally will cover a lot of ground around how the employees are actually expected to behave in an institution. And it's important to understand that the code itself, because it puts all the do's and the don'ts, it really helps the employees to know what is expected of them.
Now, is the code of conduct the same as disciplinary code? I'm now trying to differentiate if there's a difference. If yes, how can we differentiate between a code of conduct and disciplinary code?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Usually we find, like, when we go into some institutions have very clearly and elaborate codes of conduct. They have stipulated everything, then they have the disciplinary codes. Now, the two documents are actually different. Okay. I know that in some cases you go to certain institutions and they tell you, no, all these things we have, but it's one document, right? Now, let me explain the little difference and how you can actually find a situation that in some cases they combine the document with the code of conduct and the disciplinary code. The code of conduct, basically, like I said, it stipulates the expected behavioral standards. So in there, it has established the minimum requirements, what you need to be doing. Now, the disciplinary code will tell you what will happen to you when you don't do these things that the code of conduct told you to be doing. So, and you also find that in the code of conduct, in many cases, what will be written there is that these are your expected behaviors. In the event that you violate these standards, you shall be dealt with in line with the applicable provisions in the disciplinary code. So you find that the code of conduct could also refer to the other document. And that's why it's important in an institution to actually know what document do we actually have. So the code of conduct in certain cases will not have the punishment that will be met, you as an employee, if you do something wrong, you end up having. But in the disciplinary code, it is now discipline. Because here, in the disciplinary code will give you an outline of where it is drawing the authority, in terms of the contracts, the laws, and so on, and the policies. Then the disciplinary code will also tell you these are the powers that the supervisor has in relation to disciplining an employee. These are the powers that your human resource has in terms of discipline, maybe the CEO or the disciplinary committees. So the disciplinary code itself will stipulate how discipline will be now managed. In the event that you commit an offense, in the disciplinary code, to put all the steps that will be followed. For instance, how you'll be cancelled. Beyond that, how you'll be given a warning. Beyond that, maybe how you now could end up being fired. So in the disciplinary code, it will tell you what will happen in the event that you commit an offense. And in some disciplinary codes, they also add the grievance procedure as another section that actually allows you also to see when the employer punishes you or wants to punish you, what can also you as an employee do if you have a grievance against the employer in terms of the step-by-step processes that you have to follow, all the way to the time that you can take a grievance outside of the company into maybe labor office and the court and so on. So these two documents, like I made mention, they're different, but in some cases In a number of institutions, depending if, especially smaller institutions, they might only have the disciplinary code. And in the disciplinary code, it will also tell them some of the things that are not, which the employee should not be doing. So that's sometimes where the confusion comes from.
Well explained to our viewers. If you've just joined us, you're watching Labor Matters right here on KBN TV. And today we are looking at Staff Code of Conduct. That is what we are looking at today. And if you have any questions, comments, or contributions, feel free to use the number which is right on your TV screen. Send us a text message and tell us where you are watching Labor Matters from. Now, Mr. Kanda, you being an employment expert, why is Staff Code of Conduct so important for any organization? And in a situation where an organization does not have a code of conduct, do we have any implications for such an organization?
Yes, so when you come to employees, like we've said before, employees are human beings. And each human being has a certain set of behaviors, and those behaviors could even change. The same person can behave in a particular manner today, tomorrow the same person is behaving in another way. So because human beings, employees are human beings, it's important that you look at having that code of conduct. Because let me start from the companies that have the businesses that are just starting, and we see this when we do trainings for entrepreneurs, and sometimes they say, no, I really don't need these big things. The issue here is that when you are alone, it's okay for you to control yourself. But when you are going to be working with another person, 2, 3 more, 5 more people with you, they need to know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable as a business. So it's important that you have a code of conduct that tells them what you expect from them. Now imagine, we are now talking about even just 4 or 5 people together. When you look at the big corporations, we deal with companies with maybe 1,000 employees, 10,000 employees. So in such a situation, you basically have 1,000, 2,000 individuals who are coming with their own behaviors, and these people have to now work in one place and they need to be pulling in the same direction. So it's important that the employees are actually told what is expected, and that is what creates a corporate culture. Remember, we've talked about these things, that where you are working, you can have a culture for the country, but the institution should have its own culture. And the code of conduct is one key tool that actually helps you to create that culture that you want, how you want to be identified as this institution, your values, and the code actually helps to sustain all those things that people write nice things. These are our values of integrity, honesty, courtesy, accountability, and all those things. It's very easy for those things to be eroded or for employees to forget about those things. But when they actually put in the code the behaviors that are expected for you to live, the values that you say these are values, you find that actually having the code of conduct becomes extremely important. And that is how you manage some of the behaviors of the employees.
Amazing. Now, are there any legal requirements for organizations to have a code of conduct?
Yeah, so when it comes to the code of conduct, the law is very clear. Again, sometimes we have these conversations and a lot of arguments. These things are not needed. It's just too much work, too much paperwork. So the laws have actually changed. First of all, depending on the country where the business is operating from, it's important that those businesses understand the laws that apply in those countries. You can come from another country and you're operating in this particular country. It's important to take note of the laws that apply in that country. So for businesses that apply that operate in Zambia, for instance, you find that the law is very clear in the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019. When you look under section 95, it's very, very clear that a company needs to have the policies in place. And one of those is this code of conduct that defines how employees are going to behave. Now, why is that even important? It's important to understand that the code helps the employees to know what is expected of them, the behaviors that are expected of them, when should they do certain things, because in the same law, when you again go to another section from section 52, you start understanding that those things that used to happen in the past for employers, for instance, to just wake up and say, no, I'm giving you 30 days notice, you're fired. Yeah. Those things are now a thing of the past. Because now the law is very clear that you need to give a valid reason. And those valid reasons relate to the performance of the employee, the conduct of the employee, or operational needs of the company. So there are these three things. Now, of these three things, you have the performance and conduct of the employee separate, going through a separate process. Then you have operational needs going through a separate process. Now, operational needs and all those things, you can give a person those 30 days notice and whatnot. But for these two, the performance and behavior or the conduct, you need to pass the employee through a disciplinary process because you need to give them an opportunity to be heard, because the law is very clear that you cannot terminate the employee's contract without giving them an opportunity to be heard on performance or capacity, as well as their conduct. So the aspect of conduct is actually enshrined in the Act. It is a very important and crucial aspect because, like we said, employees are human beings and they're going to perform. Like we mentioned last time, employees can perform very well, but their behavior can be unacceptable. Even in that case, they will then be separated from the company if they do not change. So the aspect of conduct is extremely important. And that's why before you just wake up and say, I don't like this employee, they should be fired because their behavior is totally unacceptable. What behavior are you actually referring to? Did you actually tell them that this behavior is not acceptable here? And that's why when you don't have the code, you then start using emotions. You start saying things that you wake up today, you are not happy. No, I don't like this behavior. But this behavior should be well defined. You should make it clear. And that's why, because the law now is requiring you to give the employee an opportunity to be heard. If it is a conduct issue, you then need to be very clear as a business that this and this and this and this are the required standards in my business, or these are the required standards in my branch. If you're a branch manager or you're a CEO, you say this is what is acceptable in my company. And all those things need to be very, very clear. And that's why the code of conduct becomes important. It's actually a legal requirement that you have it under Section 95 of the Employment Code if you're operating in Zambia.
Now, who should develop the code of conduct? Should it be developed by internally or maybe by the consultant who is supposed to develop this code of conduct?
When it comes to developing the code of conduct, again, the bottom line is the capacity and policies in place. I'll start with policies. There are certain institutions that have clear policies in terms of how documents will be developed. Others will stipulate that those policies might be reviewed or developed by internal teams. Others, they are very clear that they want these things done by consultants. Now, when that is the case, apart from policy, it's also important to look at the capacity. That is, if we want to do this internally, do we have internal capacity? Does the company have capacity itself in terms of the managers or the officers or directors who are in that company to actually develop those documents and ensure that the documents are actually compliant with the law? So the advantage of internal teams actually developing these things is that it's actually very cost effective. You spend less. The people that are working on your code, they're actually on the payroll, so it's part of their work. So if you use internal teams, and if the internal teams actually have capacity, that is your HR department or the managers and the directors and everybody that will be involved in developing that, including just employees, and sometimes even unions get involved. If there is capacity, they can do a proper job. We do encourage that they do that, but bearing in mind that they need to make sure that they actually comply with the general with the laws, of course, and also general acceptable standards. Because sometimes what starts to happen, the downside to it, when you just use internal teams, sometimes they start to write things that are meant to kind of save employees, because there is that interest. This thing is going to affect you. So even for things that should have been black and white, there is a way people play around with words. Where it is supposed to say shall, because when it is shall, it's a directive. Maybe change that word and put may, so that you say, you said an employee may display integrity, or an employee may do, because now may, just that one word changes everything. So sometimes it's about that self-interest. So that's why on the other end, there is sometimes that inclination also to use external consultants, because the consultants, they are coming in. One of the advantages that we are hoping, they're talking of credible consultants, they should do a proper job, align the code with some of the best practices, and also taking into consideration the laws and everything, so that when that document is created, it's actually a proper document. Now, that is on one end, when the advantage. The limitation with the consultants also is that because they are coming from out of the institution, sometimes they really don't have the proper appreciation of the institution itself, where it is coming from, how it is trying to serve, the clients or the stakeholders, and all those kind of things. Sometimes some of the consultants will just do what is called copy and paste. You have this big document that you did for another company, so all you do is control, find, replace, and it simply starts to replace the names of the previous client, and this is good. So it doesn't actually lead to customization of documents. So it's important, therefore, that when you choose to either use internal teams or external consultants, there's that combination actually, where if you use the consultants, actually they should work with the internal teams, so that then you get the benefit from both, and in that way you create proper documents that actually could stand the test of time.
Now, should employees be inducted on the code of conduct?
Definitely. You see,
it came out so strong.
No, because sometimes you find the company pays so much money to the consultant, and the consultant has delivered this document, they sign, they do invoicing, and walks away with his check or her check, and then what? They put the thing on the shelf.
And forget about it.
When the auditors come or labor office comes, we can be able to show, here we have this document. That, Patricia, doesn't help anyone. You will tick a box that you are compliant, you have this document. So if they are checking for compliance under section 95, you can show them that you have the document, but it doesn't help the institution. It's actually a waste of your resources for paying for such. You should spend time making sure that the employees actually understand this document, because it's the employees that actually their behavior towards each other, their behavior towards their superiors, and their behavior towards the customers is what is actually going to be affecting the perception that people may have about your institution. It's not that document which is in the cupboard somewhere gathering dust. No, because when the employee is stealing, they are begging from the customers, or they are making all sorts of deals, or they are insulting each other in the workplace, and there's no integrity, that just doesn't help you in terms of how the outside world will perceive you, including how employees will be perceiving management, and how employees are perceiving each other. Imagine being in a place where you look at your friend, you are even saying, I don't know what now she has stolen, because this is our culture here. No, it shouldn't be like that. It should be where you induct everybody, and everybody knows what is expected of them. To a point where even when another person tries to do something, even the colleagues will even say, Mwana, we don't do that. We don't do that. So they will actually, when employees are well trained around these matters, they actually start to you create that culture where they can actually, there's some level of self-regulation because they can help each other. I grew up in a home, for instance, where the rules were very clear. And you even knew if you did something, hey, you even knew the punishment that would come. There was no discussion around it. By the time
no negotiations.
There's no negotiation. So even in companies, just as an example, that when rules are very clear, the guidelines are very clear, employees are inducted, they then get to understand what is expected of them, and they can also regulate themselves. But also at the same time, these trainings should not just be one-off. For instance, just when the employee is starting work, it should also be from time to time have those sensitizations, because new employees come, others are going, but also just the old employees that may be with you. It's natural that they may start to forget about certain things.
What about managers? You've mentioned to say it is vital for employees to be inducted. What about managers?
Definitely, the managers actually the ones who, sometimes, like when we're dealing with some of the clients, you find they just tell you, no, we just want you to talk to the employees. Okay, why? No, because you see the way they are behaving, we are not really very happy. But how is it possible that you can only talk to the employees? Managers also need to know things, because they are actually the ones whose behavior will be, emulated by the employees. So the managers need to do the right thing. If you tell the junior employees that don't steal, yet they are seeing their boss is the one who is stealing, how is that possible that you're going to create an environment where there's no stealing in this company? So it is important that the managers are trained, they start doing the right thing. But apart from the fact that their behavior will be emulated, there will be a reflection around, it's also about what they do. When the managers actually start conducting themselves in a manner that is in line with your code of conduct, it then becomes easy for them to also be able to enforce the provisions of that code of conduct. If they see an employee is going to the left when the code says go to the right, then you can have a conversation. The manager or the line manager or the supervisor or whatever terminology is used can then sit down with this employee and say, look, this and this and this, your behavior is really not very acceptable here. We are now asking that you consider making some changes in terms of the way you behave. And they will then give that employee some warning. It starts with counseling. They'll counsel the employee so that employee starts to change. And if the employee is not changing, then they can now, look at escalating those things to warnings and so on, all the way up to the point of separating with that employee if the employee is not changing. So the managers actually are very critical, and they need to be trained so that they are then able to maintain that standard of behaviors that are acceptable in your business.
Mr. Kabanda, you're also a leadership advisor. What are some of the best practices for handling violations of the code of conduct? Because I must make mention to say that we can't run away from this. In any organization, we have people who always violate the code of conduct. But what are some of the best practices for handling violations?
So, like we've said, in terms of violations, first of all, the employees, like we've said, need to be trained, the managers being trained. Now, part of that training is also a component that talks about what would happen. And remember, we also talked about the disciplinary code itself. In the disciplinary code, again, like I mentioned, in some cases, the disciplinary code will have also just all these do's and don'ts. The disciplinary code will provide for what would happen to an employee who violates these provisions. And that's why at the very beginning, when you're doing the training, you make sure that the employees know. That is the starting point. Secondly, where now an employee actually commits an offense. Now, it's important to understand this offense they have committed, at what level is it? Is it an offense where the employee requires to be warned, or it's really just a matter of sitting down with them and counseling them. So at this stage, probably the best option is to counsel them. You start talking to them about some of these behaviors that they need to change, because sometimes people will do all sorts of things because they don't know better, or simply because they have forgotten, or something now is becoming like, okay, it's a normal thing, it's okay, because maybe they think the company has forgotten. So when you basically start to take them through, counsel them, they can change. Where now they are not changing, in many disciplinary codes, it will specify what will then happen. For instance, the supervisor will raise a charge. After the charge is raised, then the employee may be taken for a disciplinary hearing. From the disciplinary hearing, the committee there will then decide, in line with the disciplinary code, whether this person should just end on a written warning, or it is a situation which leads to a summary dismissal. Again, it is as per the provision of the disciplinary code. And I'm talking about the disciplinary code because it's important that companies follow that document which they created themselves. Otherwise, sometimes it leads to problems where you find that you have fired someone without following the due process.
Now, what roles do leadership and management play in upholding and promoting the code of conduct within the organization?
In terms of the role of management, again, it's about, first of all, creating the environment. Management needs to be very clear about the vision that they have for the institution. Meaning, where are we actually taking this institution? Where do we want to go? Now, for us to get to where we want to go, it's again important for management to define the expected performance and behaviors of the employees. So you're trying to work around creating a culture that actually allows employees to focus on high performance. If the employees are focusing on high performance, performance is on one side. It will have its own steps that they have to be followed in terms of setting the right targets, the KPIs, and supporting the employees all the way to appraisals and afterwards rewarding them. This is on the performance side. On the behavior side, again, it's about making sure that these behaviors are well defined, and this is why we're talking about management ensuring that there is a code of conduct in place, which then can be a reference to help the employees to behave in line with those standards, because you need to have a balance in terms of performance and then behavior. Then the leadership in the institution again needs to make sure that they are counseling employees who may be going against these expected standards in terms of behaviors. Counsel the staff. You should not feel intimidated as a boss or feel uncomfortable. Of course, these are very uncomfortable conversations, but they have to be held. So the manager has to hold those conversations with the employee and make sure that they explain things. And lastly, enforce. Because if the employees see that somebody was doing something wrong, there's nothing that the management has done, definitely those people will say, okay, it's acceptable to do wrong things here. So it's important that they enforce the right cultures.
Well explained, and I just hope leaders have listened to your advice and put it into consideration. If we can read some of the text messages which we've received from our viewers. So the first one reads, I'm watching you from Kitwe. My question is, do we have labor laws in Zambia? If yes, why are workers suffering and labor officers are there? How can the labor officers help the workers working with the Chinese companies? My name is Mlongochi.
Yes, so there are labor laws in this country, and there is a ministry responsible for labor in this country called the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Where an employee has a problem, like we've said, if first of all start internally to deal with those matters. If internally things cannot be resolved, the employees have the right to go to labor office, who will summon, in many cases, labor office, after reviewing the case, they summon the employer, and I think in a number of cases they're doing a great job. Where again the employee is not satisfied with the outcome, or they think that they are not receiving the necessary service, they have actually a right to proceed to the courts, and the courts will make a determination over the cases.
Well explains. This one reads, please help me. Our boss told us that each worker is entitled to 2 days leave per year and 1 month salary for every 2 years leave days. I'm a general worker for 4 years and I get 2,000 monthly. Ushiko from Lusaka.
Yes, again, for employees now in the country, the laws have been made to be very accessible. You can basically just go online and Google and download the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019. The law has provided for an employee to get a minimum of 2 leave days per month. So those leave days have to be utilized where the employee actually goes on leave and utilize those leave days. And if the leave days have not been used, the employee then will have to be paid the outstanding leave days. Again, these are matters that where you find that you're not enjoying the benefits that are provided under the law, employees again have the right to seek for guidance from Labour Office over such matters.
And they always come to you to ask, Mr. Kabanda, because you're a go-to person.
I'm telling them. We receive a lot of questions. Please try to get in touch with Labour Office. But of course, feel free to get in touch, and we can then direct you to the right resources.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate when they see you on TV, they think you're coming from the Labour Office.
No.
So
we're not from there. We're just here to basically share knowledge around labour matters in the country and help to increase awareness for employees, employers, and everybody who's involved in the labour market.
It's been an amazing conversation, Mr. Kabanda, and I just hope our viewers have really enjoyed this program as I did.
Thank you.
Sure. If you can just give us your last remarks as we get to wrap up this conversation.
Yeah, in conclusion, Patricia, is just really again to urge employers to make sure that they put in place required documentations and policies, procedures that help to build better institutions. And again, these policies and procedures and codes and all those things need to be reviewed from time to time so that to ensure that they are compliant. Don't keep documents that were created in 1965 and you're just referring to them. Check to make sure that, these things are actually encompassing what is happening now. Like we've been to some companies where now they have problems because employees committed some offenses on social media, and now the code of conduct or the disciplinary code has nothing in there, and they are kind of stuck on how they treat such cases. So ensure that your documents are updated and employees are well sensitized over those matters.
Thank you very much for once again making an appearance on Labour Matters.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Amazing. To our viewers who've been watching Labour Matters right here on KBN TV. Remember, Labour Matters comes to your screen every Sunday from 14 to 15 hours. So make a date with us. And today we're looking at an interesting topic. We're looking at staff code of conduct. That was our topic of discussion for today. So please feel free to follow Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all social media platforms. Make sure that you follow him. I have been your host, Patricia. Until next week, same time, same channel. It's goodbye and God bless.